Hey there YouTube, this is Lucifer Legabord coming back at you with another video. Alright, so we're going to be diving into an interesting subject today, and what I'm going to be talking about is what you see here. Um, Now, in Satanism, especially Laveyan Satanism, um, we have various degrees and ranks when you get into our organization, or organizations, especially the Church Satan. Now, before I continue any further, let me reiterate, I do not represent any organization at all. I am not a member of the Church Satan. I am not a member of any organized group in Satanism at all. I am an independent Satanist. I am an independent theistic Laveyan. That is to state that I am pre-1975 classical Laveyan style. Now, you may be going like, what is up with that? Well, the thing is pre-1975, Laveyanism actually did believe in a real devil at some point. And we will be getting into that later. But for people who are just getting into Satanism and they're wondering, what is the deal with the ranks in the Church Satan? And when I'm reading Church Satan books, how do I go about them? What levels should I go? Now, I'm going to state, excuse me, I'm going to say one thing. You can jump around in the levels for the most part, but recently there's a new book to add to. It isn't so much Church Satan, but it does correlate to Advanced Satanism, by Michael Aquino, and 50th Anniversary Satanic Bible Revisions. I'll be going into that in just a few minutes and what that entails. But before we go into it, because of this book, it now brings into a system of how to get to this book. This book right here is much more advanced than your standard book on Satanism. And for those of you who are just getting into Satanism, who want to know where to start and where you're going to end up taking it, that's what this video is going to be jumping into. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it and see where it goes. To start off with, when you get into Satanism, everybody in Satanism usually starts from the same point, and that is with this book, The Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey. When you're talking about in Satanism, generally we have like 5 different degrees of levels of mastery and whatnot. And LaVey's Satanic Bible is the base root. I mean, it is the bottom of the rung. Everybody, it's, if you don't read any other book on Satanism, that's the one to read. Okay? That is technically the only book you truly, absolutely have to read on Satanism. But when you're talking about in degrees and whatnot and the levels, Satanism, the Satanic Bible is definitely the base root of it. And that's like first degree. When you're talking about Satanism, this is the fundamental rules, how we look at things in generals and whatnot. Now, Satanic Bible does not say that Satan does or does not exist in so many words. It does state that man is his own God, his own devil, and that heaven and hell, as the Christian Church explains it, doesn't exactly exist. So we make our heaven and hell here on earth. It doesn't go into any delineation about an afterlife or any of that other stuff. So, when we go into our first degree levels of Satanism, we're wanting to figure out who we are and everything, and that's where the Satanic Bible comes into play. It gives us a bare root ritual to follow and to practice that we can expand and contract, and if done correctly, it forms what's called the High Mass. So going from the Satanic Bible, also staying in the realm of what I would consider first degree Satanism, is its companion book, The Satanic Rituals. The Satanic Rituals is, mind you, most of these books you can actually interchange with at any degree or level, but I'm putting them into a system here that will help people grow and whatnot, and move up in the various what books am I ready for, what level of the Church Satan style literature is good for me right at this moment. And that's what I'm doing here. So, these first two books are level one, they're basic. The Satanic Rituals is a good book to see all the different rituals that we have. Not all the rituals that we have. There is a bunch of rituals that are not in here. But there is, this is a great book to start off with and see some of our more intricate rituals. So that is what I would count as our first degree books, okay, our first level entry books. Once you've, especially with this one, once you've gotten past the Satanic Bible, you can pretty much automatically go into what I would call our second degree level books, which is pretty much continuing with the literature of the Satanic Bible and entering into the realm of mundane magic with the Satanic Witch. The Satanic Witch, interesting note, I have its companion book, the Satanic Warlock, which is for men in the third tier level. This one is in the second tier level, is mostly for women, but also men benefit from it as well. Also in the second tier, you have The Devil Speaks and The Devil's Notebook by Anton LaVey. The second tier level is entirely comprised of the writings of Anton LaVey, and you can use the second tier level to fully flesh out your understanding of what LaVey's teachings were. So, actually, the first and second tier levels are all Anton LaVey. Once you've completed first and second tier levels of Anton LaVey's primary works, you are then ready, in my opinion, to move on to Gilmore and Gilmore's Church Satan, which is the current Church Satan under his rule. And I count Gilmore's Church Satan as sort of essential to understand, to further understand the mundane workings of the Church Satan, because they are very atheistic in that they don't believe in an actual God or whatnot, and they call themselves atheists. And I don't really agree with that on a personal basis. But what I do agree with is that their writings and literature are essential for the third degree. Okay, especially Peter Gilmore's. Now, what the third degree writings basically entail, it's from the Satanic Scriptures. This is a lot of Gilmore's writings, and it covers the atheistic point of view, the very earthy, natural point of view, taking things away from the spirituality that may have been in the Satanic Bible, and touched on, hinted at, or whatnot, um, in the early documentations. Also, in the third degree, as I mentioned before, is the Satanic Warlock, which is the companion to LaVey's Satanic Witch. However, this book is intended for men. It is not written by LaVey. It is written by a mega Magister Robert Johnson. There is other books in the Church Satan canon that are a little bit tougher to find, but you can find them. A few books by Michael Rose and whatnot, which I would all consider third level. The only book that you are absolutely required if you are looking to expand and grow in Laveyan Satanism, the only book I would say you're absolutely required to read is the Satanic Scriptures. Give me 1 second, please. Alright, so that covers that. A little side note here. There is other books out there that are for Church of Satan and whatnot that does correlate to Laveyan Satanism that are no longer in print. You can find them in PDF format. And one of the key ones that you should pick up, and this is especially if you're entering into the third and fourth level of Laveyan Satanism, is the Grotto Master's Handbook. You should go out and find it. It is available online in PDF format. It is an essential read if you're trying to start up your own group. Mind you, the Church of Satan has done away with its grotto system, so they've done away with this book in publication. But it is actually quintessential, especially once you start getting into the fourth degree level of Satanism, which is what I'm about to cover right now. So, entering into the fourth degree level of Satanism is where you pick back up the spirituality, the actual notion of a potentially real Satan. Okay, in the third degree level, you drifted away from that notion. The first two degrees introduced you to mundane magic, the very base principles of Satanism and whatnot, and hinted at Satanism possibly going both atheistically and theistically. Once you hit the third degree level, it shifted very harshly to the atheistic aspect. And now, once you're in the fourth degree level, in my way of going about it, you start coming back towards a middle ground again, and even potentially shifting into a theistical aspect. And this is where you get to decide on how you want to take your Satanism. Do you want to keep it with the atheistic aspect of the third degree and not progress any further in actual magical practices, or do you want to take it into a more spiritual context and perhaps expand and grow in that direction? And one of the first things that I would say, this is where the Grotto Master's Handbook comes in, because once you're past the third degree, once you hit the third degree, you're about ready to start up your own group and come into an understanding of it. But once you are past the third degree, you're definitely ready for that, and that's where the Grotto Master's Handbook can really help you out in understanding it. There are elements in the Grotto Master's Handbook that also pick back up the spirituality and the understanding of a potentially real Satan. Okay, and that's where that starts up. And Michael Aquino just recently published a few years back his 50th anniversary edition of the Satanic Bible Revisions, 50th anniversary revisions by Michael Aquino. Michael Aquino is not a Church of Satan member anymore, but he is one of the founding members of Church of Satan, and he is also the founder of, the high priest and one of the primary founding members of the Temple of Set. As people may or may not know, Temple of Set is the original splinter off group of Satanism that they, in 1975, created their own group and broke away from Church Satan in what was considered a pretty violent schism. Well, I wouldn't say violent, but not very pleasant. So, Michael Aquino has always had a love for Satanism, and he has for many years been considered one of our a very well respected member in the 600 Club and in the world of Satanism, even though he's doesn't consider himself a Satanist anymore. He's a Setian. He's the founder of the Temple of Set, but he has returned time and time again to the Satanic community to speak and to just associate with us and bring us a history of Satanism. When you're talking about third level or fourth degree Satanism, you're talking a lot of what Michael Aquino is talking about, re-entering and studying the history of Satanism, where we came from, and looking back to where we're going, where we came from, looking forward to where we're going. And Michael Aquino's documents is the best ones to do it. His book, The Satanic Bible, 50th Anniversary Edition, is an advanced sorcerer's handbook. This is not for just the rudimentary, hey, I'm just picking this book up. You need to have an understanding of what Satanism has gone through literary wise before you get to this. Another book, again in PDF format, that I would recommend you read concerning actual Satanism in the fourth degree would be Michael Aquino's Church of Satan. And this is a big long document or it's a bunch of different articles. You find a few rituals in it, and it will tell you pretty much where Satanism came from. Stuff that most other sources aren't going to mention. You can also find books by Blanche Barton and whatnot at this phase, and do your research really deeply into the history of the Church of Satan. Mind you, you can do your research into the history of Church of Satan at any given phase, but at this point, in this degree, you're at an understanding level to read between the lines. So, where does this book play in with the rest of it? Um, this book is great. It has the Diabolicon in it, the Word of Set, as well as a few other interesting things. It also delineates deeper into some of the more complex natures and ideas behind satanic sorcery and satanic viewpoints on how we look at the world, be it our subjective reality versus our objective reality, and just a bunch of interesting stuff. This book is pretty thick. I would have to say it is probably the thickest book on Satanism that I have, rivaling even Michael or Peter H. Gilmore's book. So it's a pretty hefty tome, as is Michael Aquino's want to do. He writes some pretty hefty stuff. Once you're past the fourth degree, once you've read this book and you understand it fully, and you have that base knowledge of the deeper understandings of Satanism, and satanic magic and sorcery, and how to apply that, you're then ready for what we call the fifth degree. That's Magus. Maguses are usually the heads of various groups. They run their own groups. Magus Peter H. Gilmore, Magus Anton LaVey. The Magus is the fifth degree. What they study and do is up to them. But this is where you have your foundations. Mind you, I'm going to be very clear on this, and I don't want anybody to take me the wrong way. After you hit the third degree, you do have the option of either continuing with being atheistic or theistic. And if you go theistic, generally, most of the time, up until recently, you'd leave the Church of Satan, you'd leave their documentation, and you'd go elsewhere to find various other types of documentation. Which is much harder to find. You got to go on Amazon, find it, and that's where you'd find this book. You can find this book on Amazon. You can also find my book on Amazon, which is called The Satanic Testament. I do not have my book here. I'm not counting it in with this list. It's just a little bit of a mention. That's where you can find my book. There's a lot of other books about Satanism, theistic Satanism, and atheistic Satanism that you can also find. Certainly, the pile that I have here is not the entire Church of Satan library. There's other books by Michael Rose and a few other authors in there. You can also find books by Blanche Barton to add to the Church of Satan canon library. That's what I got for you guys. I would advise you to go check out all those books. Don't hinder yourself. Don't limit yourself to one style. Satanism is what my personal belief is. Because if you do, then you're just limiting yourself. There's many systems of Satanism that have delineated from LaVey's system. But if you're sticking inside LaVey's system, then this is your four-stage reading level. Start with Satanic Bible and Satanic Rituals. Come to understand the base roots. Move on to the Satanic Witch and other writings by Anton LaVey. Satan Speaks and the Devil's Notebook. Then from there you move on to the Satanic Scriptures and the Satanic Warlock and any other atheistic systems that are delineated, like by Michael Rose or whatnot. The Satanic Scriptures being the only true book that you really need to read in that level to understand it, but there's others too. And then moving on to more advanced Adept Magic 4th level reading is stuff like the Satanic Bible 50th Anniversary Revisions by Michael Aquino, the Church of Satan, again by Michael Aquino, um, then also the Satanic Chronomaster's Handbook by author unknown, assumed to be Blanche Barton or Anton LaVey himself. You can find that in PDF format online. And after that, what you do is up to you. So that's my assessment on it. Pretty good stuff. Check this book out, the 50th Anniversary Revisions of the Satanic Bible. Do not mistake that this will replace the actual Satanic Bible. Nothing will do that. As a matter of fact, before you even pick up this book, you need to pick up this book, and I would suggest doing a lot of other reading first too. Otherwise, this book's going to confuse you. But it is a good book. It is an essential to any Satanist library and whatnot. Anyways, this is Lucifer Lakeboard, and thank you all for joining me in this video. If you're liking what you're hearing, if you're finding it interesting and whatnot, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. Don't forget to hit that bell icon right next to it, and give me a thumbs up. Thumbs up always help. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with whoever you want to share it with. Anyways, leave me a comment down below. As usual, please be polite with your comments. I understand that some people may not agree with everything that I say, but if you just want to talk to me about it and whatnot, I'm willing to listen, so just be polite. Thank you all. This is Lucifer Lageborn. I will see you guys later. I'm out of here.